Hey, it's the Profit Answer Man, Rocky Lalvani. If you're new to the podcast, check out my interview with Mike Michalowicz. It's episode number 2. If you want to hear about each chapter in the Profit First book, go back and listen to episodes 3 through 13. Episode 1 is the why and how. On the Profit Answer Man, we learn money mastery without all the complicated accounting mumbo-jumbo using a simple system. Your accountant is busy documenting your transactions and creating a rearview mirror of what happened. My guess is you don't even look at the reports they sent you. If you're like most business owners, you struggle with this, and it's not your fault. We aren't taught money in school, and accountants aren't taught how to be profitable. The Profit First system created by Mike Michalowicz works, and he certified me to help you implement the system in your business. Remember, the new equation is sales minus profit equals expenses. Let's face it, without cash flow, you can't pay your employees, buy needed materials, or pay your mortgage and support your family. I help you to do that and more, so you can focus on the parts of the business you love and receive the rewards for your labor and investment into your business. The stronger you are as a business owner, the more jobs you create, the better we are as a country. Small business owners are the backbone of America, and for that, you deserve to be well rewarded. Just remember, more revenue does not equal more profit. That's why we focus on the bottom line. Advertising and promotion can be a very large waste of money if it's not done correctly. Too often we spend on Google ads or Facebook ads and we wonder, why didn't we get any results? One reason is that we don't have a plan and we truly don't understand our customers. We miss out on the important step of knowing who they are, what they want, why they buy from us, and where they are hanging out. We're going to talk with Daniel Snow today about this very subject. He's an expert in this area, and he will share what he has learned over the years so you can be more profitable with your advertising and social media spending. Daniel Snow is CEO and founder of the New Jersey-based online social media marketing agency, Snow Agency and Social Cadre. Prior to becoming a disruptor in the social media e-commerce landscape, Daniel Snow had a massive success with 2 other social media-based companies he founded while still in college, generating 20 million followers across multiple pages and, more importantly, 7 million in revenue. Now he's grown to over 40 million in just his first 2.5 years operating various e-commerce brands. Let's learn from Daniel. Welcome to the Profit Answer Man, Daniel Snow. It's great to have you join us today.
Thank you very much for having me. Excited to be on.
Can you share a little bit about yourself and your business?
Yeah, sure. So I have actually 2 businesses. One is a full service advertising agency where we're a performance advertising agency, meaning everything we do is kind of reliant on performance, whether it be getting CPA goals for clients, scaling clients, and ultimately driving revenue. So we have about 90 clients in our agency. We're full service. So we do everything from advertising on all the various channels to retention marketing. So email, SMS marketing, push notifications, we have creative studio, we do web design, and 95% of our clients are all direct consumer brands. I also founded a media company called Rap TV, which is essentially a news outlet for all things related to rap and hip hop. So we have nearly 35 million followers on social media, getting over 1.5 billion impressions a month on social media. And yeah.
That's impressive. So when you say performance advertising, what do you mean by performance advertising?
So number one is that we charge on a performance model. So the more we scale clients, the more we charge them essentially. So we charge clients a percentage of ad spend. So that's how, essentially our whole model is performance driven, and clients come to us ideally to grow their business. So that's why it's, we even build in that model. So we see the upside when we grow brands.
Clearly you're successful at this. And one of the biggest concerns I always hear from my clients is, how do we know we're going to get a return on our investment? How do we decide how much to spend? And how do we know that it's all working? So what advice do you have for them for how to be profitable with social media?
So the number one way to be profitable on social media, I would say number one, if it's on social media specifically, it's content driven. And if you have no content strategy or no clue what to do, it doesn't matter if you're running ads yourself, you're trying to grow an organic following, you're paying an agency. If you don't have a content strategy in place, then there's not going to be any profits. You're just going to lose a lot of money. So having testing content and having a really iterative process in place is number one, the most important thing on social media, bar none. Number two, kind of like I just alluded to a bit, is testing. Once again, it doesn't matter if you're testing content in organic manners, posting on your Instagram, TikTok, etc., or doing paid ads. If you're not constantly testing new formats, then you can't improve, you can't progress, you can't tap into trends as they happen, etc. So I would say ultimately those are the two most important things that come to mind when I think of how to profit first on social media.
Do most people have a content strategy when they come to you?
I would say 50-50. And ultimately what we found is that the clients who don't have a content strategy, we won't even take at this point because they're just not set up for success. They end up churning because obviously they're paying retainers and don't have content, and ultimately they're not going to get great results. And on vice versa, the clients that really understood social and content revenue, but they did a great job of building organic following, working with influencers, stuff like that, and just didn't know ultimately how to leverage paid to get their business to the next level. Those have all been the clients that have been our biggest success stories, fastest growing brands, et cetera, are the ones that really got understood content. So, yeah.
So what does a good content strategy look like?
I would say number one is market research. That's where it starts. So market research on understanding who is your customer base, what do they look like, what are their attributes, what are they interested in, how does that relate to what you're selling? What do you represent? And then once you understand all those different things, that's when you can start testing, creating content for various personas and hitting some of their interests, some of their challenges, some of their pain points. Once again, this is relevant to anything, whether you're putting out information, you're trying to sell them a product, just understanding your audience is the single most important thing to content. Because once you can do that, then you can start theorizing what they might be interested in this, because I already know that they're interested in X, Y, and Z. And that's how you begin testing content for various personas and various interests that are kind of baked underneath that. So, yeah.
So out of curiosity, if someone already doesn't have a content strategy, you're not going to help them, right? Create that. That's not your place, correct?
So now that we have, it wasn't, and we realized that this was a common pattern, and that was our inspiration behind launching our creative studio. And now that we're also able to do, we call it UGC as a service, user generated content. So because this was a trend, it was a pain point that we saw for our clients. Now we can offer it to our clients as an additional service. So it drives extra revenue for us. It helps clients solve their pain point because they might not have the bandwidth or resources, capacity, or just know how to get that content we need. But at the end of the day, we provide kind of best practices on what we need at the bare minimum to start. So we give a one-sheeter on specific content formats and whatnot that we need. And obviously, for us to produce and film content and work with influencers, all that requires a lot of extra employees. So if clients can't afford that, then they would have to source it on them by themselves.
So it kind of depends. When we look at different social media platforms, and I've always been told they all have their own flavors, how do we know which platform is best for our business?
So I would say if it's paid, well, it really depends on the product you're selling. So for example, if you're trying to generate demand, then Facebook and Instagram, from what I'm seeing on the paid side, is still the leader in that. If you're trying to grow a quick following in an organic fashion, I'm seeing TikTok is by far the best for this. I've never seen such the ability for really anyone to create a large following in a really quick manner and a pretty predictable manner, as I'm seeing now on TikTok. So their explore page, for you page, whatever you want to call it, just really gives a lot of power to the creators that are creating on their platform. And I think that's ultimately why their platform's been growing so quickly. And then, a lot of things that are, especially if you're doing paid, whether it be lead gen or e-commerce or really anything where there's search volume specifically for that, that's where Google search can play a big hand. So yeah, that's a quick little tidbit.
One of the things that you had mentioned to me before we hit record was that you help people because they make a lot of mistakes when launching a business. Love to hear your insights on that.
Yeah, I've seen a ton of people make huge mistakes when launching business. I would say going back to hit the same point over and over, I would say having no content strategy in place is the biggest mistake I see people make. And also having no idea what their audience is. And just the unwillingness to test early on. For an e-commerce business and really anyone selling something online, typically the number one lever that people don't test enough but has the biggest implication on performance is price. And you'd be amazed how much of a difference split testing the price of your product or service may have. I've seen situations where someone increases the price of a product 50% and has no impact on conversion rate. Well, ultimately, what you just did is increase your revenue 50% without doing literally anything different. I've seen situations where someone might increase their product 10% and it can have a 50% decrease in conversion rate. So it's the split testing and price point, I think, ultimately, especially when you're coming to market for the first time, that I've seen people really kind of be stubborn to when they shouldn't, because you might have an idea of kind of like what you're coming to market with, but ultimately I like to let the data tell me what to do. So being open-minded and split testing prices early on that's the easiest thing you can possibly do. Another huge mistake going back is just testing enough content for enough different target personas. And a lot of times with new products, once again, since you can't poll your customers, you can't ask them questions because you don't have any customers yet, having a really strict strategy in place where you can get that information feedback from your customer to you and your team so that you can make intelligent decisions from that is super important and critical. Because now once you start understanding more about your customer and the various personas that might entail, now you can create a customized content strategy for these people. You can also create specific customized landing pages for these people because everyone buys a product for a different reason. So ultimately, early on, those are the two most important things that I see. And once you start scaling up and getting success and you know all about your customer and what they want, what they're interested in, that's when you can start looking for influencers, celebrities, stuff like that represent what your target persona may look like. So yeah, that's a quick roadmap on just kind of like early things I see.
So when people are starting up, do they really know who their target customer is? Or is it more, hey, I've got this great idea or product and I'm going out into the market? They're not so sure who's actually going to buy it, are they?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You could do typically your best in looking at competitors and kind of going over their comments, their reviews, their Amazon reviews, their Google searches, reviews. And you can scour Reddit You can scour the internet looking at your competitors, because oftentimes this may be indicative of what your customer might be. But that's really the most you can do at that point, because you don't have the data on your customer because you don't have customers yet. So, yeah.
I find most business owners don't do this.
They do not do this. And, even for a business, a lot of time businesses don't simply poll their employees on this. And if you don't get that information from your customer or your team, you can't improve on what you're doing. So it sounds simple, but it just, you'd be shocked how many people don't go this extra step.
I find most businesses and most people struggle with simple. They all want some kind of complicated solution to their...
A magical step, they'll get the results, yeah.
Yes, and there are no magical steps. It's understanding who your clients are and why they buy. And I think that's probably a big struggle, because as I talk to them, a lot of them don't... Some of them, it's very clear cut. But for a lot of them, they really don't know who their avatar is. They think they know what they're selling, but many times they don't. And part of it is they've never had the conversation with their clients. And they can grow a good deal and still miss the avatar of the reason why. And I think that's what comes back to people struggling to raise prices and being afraid to raise prices because they think that the person won't buy.
Or decrease prices, by the way. They might be pricing it too expensive, So just being open-minded to that.
The market's going to tell you if you're you're overpriced because you won't get sales. So that's easy to figure out. The market's not going to tell you you're underpriced other than you get a ton of business.
So it might be easy to figure out. But a lot of times there's the stubbornness component to it. I've seen clients where we say, clearly, this is the threshold of where your business needs to be from what we're seeing from add to cart, initiate checkout, conversion rate. And if you're far below, like you said, the market will tell you that because it's indicative in the data. But some people still won't make that effort to make a change.
Those aren't my clients. If you're not willing to make change, you're wasting your time and money with me, because we're going to look at everything and make it all about that. You've also got some advice on how to scale operations, because clearly I know you've done that. You've gone very quickly to go from a small business to a big business. What advice do you have for others?
My advice for others is, and I've made this mistake countless times, scaling in a lean way where you're hiring kind of like junior people who you can afford at the time and are kind of like extensions of yourself. And I found that if your business really scales, then these same people, it's hard for them to grow alongside it because they might have experience in the execution, not the leadership and management that you need at that point. So hiring people like for the future of your business early on and hiring senior people, I would say is the most crucial thing that I like. Looking back, I've made mistakes many times. So the early hires you make are the most important ones, because a lot of times it'll dictate your future culture of your business, values, and eventually growth, right? Because your team is everything. You can't do everything yourself. So just being really, really kind of cautious when making those initial hires is crucial.
So the objection I get, or what I have seen, is in the beginning, a lot of people have to hire what they can get because they can't afford to hire the people they really want. In other words, the quality of person. How do you overcome that?
It's tough. I mean, if you simply can't afford it, you simply can't afford it. There's like no way around it. You need to make a sacrifice somewhere, right? And that's where typically you're sacrificing. That's when you go back to hiring someone who's a lot more junior, and then so where the trade-off is typically your time, right? If you have to take all your time managing and training someone who doesn't know anything, now, it's your time investment, and your time is obviously money versus potentially hiring someone that might have a lot more experience and can actually add you value, teach you something. So that's kind of how I think about it. But yeah, at the end of the day, if you simply can't afford it and you simply don't have the money, you don't have the means to do it, you can't hire that person. Building a really detail-oriented training process is another crucial thing to doing early on. Because if you don't have this training process, then you're continuing to hire people in the same role, you or your training manager, whoever, is gonna have to keep doing the same things over and over and over and over again, instead of potentially having something that's a bit more automated, whether it's video training series, written, etc. It'll just help with consistency and quality, and also take away some of the time that you have involved as a manager. So, yeah.
Early on, people don't build training systems.
Yeah, and I remember I was reading a book. I think training is like the single most important thing you can literally do as a business owner, manager, or whatever. Because once again, if your team can't get the output, it's typically because they weren't trained properly. There's very few people that can just figure it out as they go in the perfect way that you want. So,
you said something interesting a little bit earlier. You talked about the early people creating the culture. How often do you see the owner intentional in deciding what the culture should be up front and then hiring to the culture versus just allowing culture to happen based on whoever kind of walks in the door?
I think that setting your guiding principles up early on is really important. And this took me a while to think about, because although we have 6 guiding principles now, it really should be representative of not just the company you want to be, but the company you actually are. And I remember reading about this, because if you're just setting these idealistic principles where you're not at all, and just, people will know it's bullshit and it doesn't mean anything. So really taking the time to think about that and kind of be transparent about what those principles are, and can have people measure against those in their performance reviews, et cetera, is really ultimately how you kind of build a company with culture. So,
I know you work with your brother in the business, and a lot of times, how do you deal with kind of that line between family, brother, business partner?
I think that we work well together because we're not we kind of feed off of each other's weaknesses in a sense, or we both have different skill sets, so it's really synergistic. And ultimately, that's what allows us to have a good business relationship. But I think ultimately, working with family can either be the best thing in the world or the worst thing in the world. There's no medium, right? Because if there's a medium, it's not very good, typically. So that's kind of how I think about it. So definitely is a delicate subject. Same thing with working with friends, because if it doesn't work out, it can be a bit difficult. But yeah.
Have you guys done anything to help that process along? Was there, again, it comes back to the beginning, right? Did you have the conversations up front of how you're going to do things, or was it more of an evolved process?
It was definitely evolved. It didn't start out where we were business partners. It started out just kind of me teaching him online marketing, and eventually evolved into something a lot more encompassing. So there was years in place where we were still kind of just figuring it out, so to speak. So yeah.
Interesting. You work with a lot of business owners. What advice do you have for them to improve their business and be more sales and more profit?
So number one, for typically as a business owner, the easiest thing that I think anyone can do now is investing into their personal brand. Getting on podcasts like this, posting on LinkedIn, posting on Twitter, getting involved in the community. You would be shocked at how far this simply takes you. We get now just inbound leads consistently and frequently because they say, oh, I see Daniel Snow posting on LinkedIn all the time. I always see his case studies. I always see the tweets. And people see this. You don't need to have a massive following, especially if you're in a niche business, because you only need one lead to convert. So just doing this and being consistent about it and getting involved in the community where you're in really goes such a long way. The other interesting thing is that it really compounds. I've been in the digital marketing social media space for 8 years now, 9 years. And I have gone to so many events, so many dinners, networked with so many people, formed so many relationships that now simply when someone says, oh, I need someone to run my ads, more often than not, they've seen what I do and they've talked with me and I come to mind. And that's where posting on LinkedIn and Twitter comes in hand, because that's how you stay top of mind with your audience. So I think that's such like an easy, low-hanging fruit step that so many people just do not do or think about. It's crazy. But yeah.
It's funny. I'm in this business group and we talk about LinkedIn from time to time in our marketing strategies and so forth. And the one thing we all say is it's kind of surprising. When you are posting on LinkedIn, everybody is in lurker mode. They never hit like, you don't even know that they're watching you. And 9, 10 months, 12 months later, they show up on your calendar and they're like, oh, I've been watching all your stuff. Or they see you in person and they're like, oh, I've been watching your stuff. And that comes to, like, people say that to me constantly.
I would say this, as a business owner, LinkedIn is bar none the best social media, because it's like, it has that like TikTok effect that TikTok does for creators. You can get tons of views and go viral. LinkedIn has the exact same algorithm. I made a post on Friday, it has 25,000 views. I don't have 25,000 friends, but LinkedIn promotes when they see your friends like a post, it keeps promoting it to more and more people. And this is how you can get a post to a massive audience, especially if you're doing it consistently. And of course, if you're telling stories or interesting things and you're a thought leader, once again, now people want to work with you. So LinkedIn really, 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 really puts a lot of power to the creators on their platform. And I've been in touch with some pretty interesting leads that I would have never had a chance to talk to if it weren't for just simply posting on LinkedIn. So definitely worth because it's also underutilized, right? I don't think people think about posting on LinkedIn. They think it is kind of spammy these days, but they just don't really think about it. So yeah.
So as you're creating the LinkedIn strategy, what should people, like you mentioned stories, what is it that people should be doing on LinkedIn to get that viral post? Is there some kind of...
Yeah, I think case studies, right? Numbers. People love numbers. Simple. You have impressive numbers. You've done something impressive. Talk about it. Something that matters a lot is hooks. So you have 2 lines until you see the see more button. If you don't hook those people in for them to read the post, then you can't get them engaged. And LinkedIn kind of knows the algorithm and all that, and the click-through rates of people looking into that and reading your post, spending more time on the post and whatnot. So putting together a compelling hook is so important for creating a successful LinkedIn post. And I'm sure you've seen all this. It's storytelling. How can you storytell something and play it back to your service or what you're offering or what you're selling? And it doesn't have to be just like selling. Trying to take a story and turn it back into your offer is how you get someone interested and kind of portray that, where it's not just like it looks like an ad you're selling someone. So storytelling is I see is just like really compelling on LinkedIn.
Does video matter on LinkedIn?
No, not at all. If anything, actually, I think video does not work on LinkedIn. I think people are scrolling, like you said, they're lurking. They don't want to like watch videos. They're just like scrolling their timeline looking for stuff. I think text is just fine.
Okay. That's interesting.
At least from what I've seen. A lot of the viral posts I've seen have not been video more often than not.
And that makes sense. I don't like the way LinkedIn does their video commenting. It's hard to see the comments on the video in LinkedIn. You actually have to wait and watch it pop up. It doesn't do it in an easy to follow way, which is interesting. LinkedIn's also great for recruiting, looking for people and using it in that way. And Absolutely. Unfortunately, And we've talked about LinkedIn before and how to set up your profile, how to make yourself look good. And LinkedIn is also high for SEO. So if you've got a good LinkedIn profile, when people Google you, LinkedIn is usually one of the top results. So it goes across those platforms as well.
Absolutely.
Any closing thoughts or advice for business owners?
Closing thoughts are, I would say, you have to be passionate about what you do. If you don't enjoy what you're doing, it's really tough to get up every morning and get excited. So going into every morning, every day where it's like, oh, I got to work today. It's hard to have success over time. So whether it's you're an employee or a business owner, it's kind of the same outlook.
And I think with the Great Resignation, people are really coming to grips with that. Too often people go into business to make money, not to do what they love. And I think that is where the biggest mistake is. As you said, if you're not motivated and excited about what you do, you're really going to struggle going forward. So making sure that that is definitely the case. If people would like to learn more about you, find you, what's the best way for them to find you?
I'm very active on social media. So Twitter, I am Dan Snow. Instagram is Dapper. LinkedIn, my name, Daniel Snow. Feel free to reach out.
And we'll put some links in the show notes as well to make it easy for them to do that.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
If you're not connected with me on LinkedIn, you should be. You're missing out on my Road Less Stupid thinking questions. I post a video a couple of times a week. When you understand your customers and what they need and put together a good strategy like Daniel shared, you can get a great return. You should always be testing and experimenting in your business. Can you imagine if people were willing to pay you 50% more and you didn't ask? What would that do to your bottom line? It happens all the time. I tell my clients all the time, increase prices. Also, he was right on the money with saying you should love your business. Because if you're just here for the money, it's going to get old when the business gets tough. Let's remember, we're going to build a business based on our values, create systems, and we work on our business instead of in our business. The big picture. Let's have fun. Let's make money. Remember, you don't need more resources. You need to be more resourceful. We focus on the bottom line. If you want a done-for-you service, you can have me as your Chief Profitability Officer because you have your zone of genius and want to spend your time doing what you love. I only work with a handful of clients, so they get my full attention. I work with business owners who have or are growing to $500,000 to $5 million in revenue. You can use the scheduling link in the show notes to get on my calendar for a good fit conversation to see if I'm the right person to support you and how I can help you. If you want to learn about living the life of your dreams, check out my other podcast, Richer Soul. As we close out, let's repeat the mantra. Revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king. Have an abundant and profitable week.